Good morning. The subcommittee will come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recess at any time. Pursuant to Committee Rule 2E and House Rule 11, the chair announces that she may postpone roll call votes. I want to thank everyone for being here this morning and note that we are starting late. Appreciate everyone being here, and we'll try to get through this as quickly as possible, but we do have important work to do this morning. Pursuant to the notice, the Subcommittee on Energy meets to consider the following four measures: H.R. 6084, the Water Power Research and Development Act; H.R. 6097, the Nuclear Energy Research and Development Act; H.R. 4481, the Securing Energy and Critical Elements in American Jobs Act of 2019; H.R. 4733, the Low Dose Radiation Research Act of 2019. We meet today to mark up four bills that each address critical research needs to help our nation combat climate change, create jobs in the growing clean energy sector, and improve our public health. So I'm pleased we're here this morning to move them forward. I'll speak briefly about the first bill we will consider, H.R. 6084, the Bipartisan Water Power Research and Development Act, introduced by Ms. Bonamici and Mr. Young and co-sponsored by Chairwoman Johnson. This bill authorizes research and development to further clean energy generation by water-powered technologies, including hydropower, pumped storage, and marine energy. I'll speak more on this bill in a few minutes. The next bill on the roster is H.R. 6097, the Bipartisan Nuclear Energy Research and Development Act, introduced by Mr. Lamb and Mr. Newhouse. This bill reauthorizes the research, development, demonstration, and commercial application activities of DOE's Office of Nuclear Energy. Not only is nuclear energy widely projected to be a necessity for the world to meet meaningful emissions reductions targets in time to mitigate the most significant potential impacts of climate change, but it is also a key technology for our national security. And this sector currently employs nearly 100,000 people in high-quality jobs in the U.S. This bill is important because it enables R&D for both the safe operation of the existing fleet of nuclear power plants and to develop and build the next generation of even safer and more cost-effective nuclear resources. I'll discuss H.R. 4481, the Securing Energy Critical Elements in American Jobs Act of 2019 in more detail a little bit later, but for now I'll just say that this bill addresses necessary research needs on materials crucial to a wide range of technologies for our cleaner energy future. And the final bill we will consider today is H.R. 4733, the Low Dose Radiation Research Act of 2019, led by Mr. Posey, with Mr. Lipinski, Mr. Babin, and Ranking Member Weber as original co-sponsors. The Department of Energy Research and Innovation Act, signed into law in September 2018, required DOE to reestablish a low-dose radiation research program to enhance the scientific knowledge of and reduce uncertainties associated with the effects of exposure to low-dose radiation. This research would be useful for making informed decisions regarding medical treatments, space exploration, and industrial radiation limits, among other areas. The Low Dose Radiation Research Act of 2019 instructs the Secretary of Energy to carry out such a research program, and it requires the Secretary to identify barriers to understanding these effects and develop a strategic research agenda to address these challenges. The bill instructs the Secretary to quantify potential health and monetary benefits produced by this research and to leverage past research performed on the effects of exposure to low-dose radiation. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support each of these bills, and I look forward to advancing them out of our subcommittee this morning. I now recognize Ranking Member Weber to present his opening remarks.
Well, that was quick. Man, you speak about 500 words a minute with Gus up to 750. See if I can keep up. Thank you, Chairwoman Fletcher, for the opportunity to speak on the energy bills this morning. On the Science Committee, we have a responsibility to support the research and development activities that will grow our economy, strengthen our national security, protect our environment, and help maintain U.S. leadership in science technology for the next generation and beyond, I might add. This is especially true on the Energy Subcommittee, where our actions can have a direct impact on the future of the U.S. clean energy economy, which touches all of these sectors and interests. So, when considering energy legislation, we need to take the long-term and the big picture approach. So this means strategically prioritizing R&D that supports the development of a diverse, domestic, and clean energy portfolio, driving innovation in areas where industry cannot, and providing the maximum return on investment for the American taxpayer. And while I believe that this is the goal of each of the four bills we will consider this morning, only two of these are actually currently bipartisan. So first, the good news. The two bipartisan bills we will consider this morning are H.R. 6084, the Water Power Research and Development Act, and H.R. 4733, the Low Dose Radiation Research Act. H.R. 6084 authorizes DOE's activities in hydropower and pumped energy storage part of the administration's Energy Storage Grand Challenge. It also provides necessary support for marine and hydrokinetic energy infrastructure and programs. It does all of this with what I call a responsible funding increase, with the majority of these funds going toward early-stage energy research. I want to thank Representative Bonamici for working with us to come to a bipartisan agreement on this legislation. We will also consider Representative Posey's Low-Dose Radiation Research Act, which authorizes basic research into the biological effects of low-dose radiation. In order to best serve our nation's energy, medical, defense, especially medical, defense, and space travel needs, we need foundational research in the radiology and biology to directly define the impact of low doses of radiation. This issue is a long-standing priority for the House Science Committee, and I am pleased to continue my support for this very important bipartisan legislation. Now to the areas where there's work to be done. Today, we will consider H.R. 6097, the Nuclear Energy Research and Development Act, and H.R. 4481, the Securing Energy Critical Elements in American Jobs Act of 2019. I want to emphasize that while I cannot support either of these bills in their current form, I support the intent behind both of them and anticipate further productive discussion, Madam Chair. On the Science Committee, I have long served as an advocate for advanced nuclear energy research and development. Last Congress, after nearly 4 years of work, my bill, the Nuclear Energy Innovation Capabilities Act, what we call NECA, which authorized key industry partnerships and critical infrastructure needed for next-generation nuclear R&D, was signed into law. H.R. 6097 would follow on this legacy by authorizing significant increases in spending across DOE's nuclear energy portfolio. And again, while I support the intent behind the bill, unfortunately, I believe this approach is both unrealistic and unproductive. We must be responsible stewards of taxpayers' dollars, even when it comes to supporting R&D research and development that we agree on. For an issue as critical as this, we must take our time and clearly delineate nuclear energy priorities. That said, I look forward to working with Representative Lamb on this legislation. With your commitment to come to the table on our concerns, I believe we can reach an agreement before we consider this bill at full committee. Next, H.R. 4481 authorizes DOE's activities in energy critical materials R&D activities. Critical materials play an important role in supporting technologies that will shape future U.S. energy consumption. DOE has the capability to conduct the R&D needed to help to get the U.S. back on track as a global leader in this area. But in order to understand its full economic risk, it is absolutely vital that we assess our resources right here at home and better understand what materials are vulnerable. H.R. 4481 is a good starting point, but I feel strongly that any legislation in this area must include detailed plans for specific interagency collaboration and comprehensive programs that assess and leverage our domestic resources. Again, I look forward to working with my friends across the aisle to address these concerns moving forward. While I know we cannot agree on everything, we have a lot of common ground here, and I feel confident that by negotiating in good faith, we're going to move forward. Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Weber, and I share your confidence, and I believe that some of the things that you've raised are in the bills and certainly things that we can take up and work through this together in a bipartisan way, as we have so successfully done on this committee. So turning to the bills themselves, we will now consider H.R. 6084, the Water Research and Development Act. The clerk will report the bill.
H.R. 6084, a bill to provide for a program of hydropower.
Without objection, the bill is considered as read and open to amendment at any point. I recognize myself to present some remarks on the bill. I'm pleased that we are now considering H.R. 6084, the Bipartisan Water Power Research and Development Act, led by Ms. Bonamici and Mr. Young. Water power technologies, which include conventional hydropower, pump storage, and marine energy technologies, have significant potential to provide an abundance of clean electricity for our country. Around 7% of total U.S. utility-scale electricity generation is produced by conventional hydropower. Pairing this technology with pump storage systems allows energy produced by hydropower plants to be deployed to the grid flexibly as more renewables enter the electricity mix. Marine energy, which includes wave, tidal, and current power, is another water power technology that has great potential. DOE's Powering the Blue Economy initiative highlights the importance of each maritime industry to the success of other such industries. So investing in marine energy technology can improve other areas of coastal and maritime markets as well. Back in November, this subcommittee held a hearing on water power technologies and discussed this piece of legislation specifically. We heard from a distinguished panel of witnesses on the scientific needs of the water power industry to further the technologies. The Water Power Research and Development Act addresses these needs by reauthorizing and guiding the research, development, demonstration, and commercial application activities of DOE's Water Power Technologies Office. This bill guides activities for a hydropower and pump storage program and separately a marine energy program encompassing energy from waves, tides, currents, free-flowing waterways, and differentials in water temperature or salinity. The bill also authorizes a study of non-power sector applications for advanced marine energy technologies, and it authorizes existing and new national marine energy centers, which are managed by institutions of higher education. This bill has already gained support from a broad coalition of stakeholders, including the Bipartisan Policy Center, Citizens for Responsible Energy Solutions, ClearPath, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, among others. For all of these reasons, I urge my Science Committee colleagues to support this bipartisan bill. Would anyone else like to be recognized? Okay. If no one else would like to be recognized, are there any amendments to the bill to be offered? Okay. If not, a reporting quorum being present, I move that the Energy Subcommittee of the Science, Space, and Technology Committee report H.R. 6084 to the full committee with the recommendation that the bill be approved. Those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the bill is favorably reported. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I ask unanimous consent that staff be authorized to make any necessary technical and conforming changes to the bill. Without objection, so ordered. Members will have 2 subsequent calendar days in which to submit supplemental minority or additional views on the measure. We will now consider H.R. 6097, the Nuclear Energy Research and Development Act. The clerk will report the bill.
H.R. 6097, a bill to provide for a program of nuclear energy research, development, demonstration, and commercialization, and for other purposes.
Without objection, the bill is considered as read and open to amendment at any point. I recognize Mr. Lamb to present his remarks on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I also want to thank the ranking member for his interest and support of the intent behind this bill. I do want to issue one minor correction, which is that his colleague, Mr. Newhouse of the great state of Washington, is one of our original lead co-sponsors, and so it is a bipartisan bill, even if Mr. Newhouse is not a member of this committee. We do intend to continue working with the ranking member and staffs to make sure we refine this into the best product we possibly can. Our goal here really is to sustain the existing fleet at a reasonable cost so that we do not backslide into additional fossil fuel usage in our power grid. My state of Pennsylvania is a great example of the risk and reward of this type of thing. We get about 40% of our electricity from nuclear power in Pennsylvania, but we have multiple plants at risk of closing, including Beaver Valley in my district, and it is a virtual certainty that all of the electricity produced by Beaver Valley would be replaced by natural gas if it goes down. We do not have enough renewables available or ready to come online to replace that share, and the same would be true with each plant that we lose in Pennsylvania. So sustaining the existing fleet through the light water reactor sustainability program is a major goal of ours, as well as looking to the future and dominating this industry on a global basis once again. You know, there was a time when Westinghouse, headquartered in Western Pennsylvania, really was the world leader in all of these technologies. Anyone who wanted to build a nuclear reactor in the world had to at least think about doing business with Westinghouse, and it had an amazing spillover economic effect throughout the state of Pennsylvania. We still remain, because of that legacy, the state with the largest number of companies in the nuclear supply chain. So it's a major part of daily economic life in our state and a contribution we've made to the world and to clean energy. And I've heard different numbers, but people estimate that there's somewhere around a $1 trillion export market for nuclear energy at various places in the world. And Russia and China, our competitors, are doing everything they can to have that market. They're offering, you know, to build, own, and operate plants in other countries and manufacture all the stuff themselves. We are ahead China still relies on Westinghouse and the AP1000 design. They cannot do what we can do, but we haven't done everything we need to make sure that in that future generation of nuclear technology, we are once again the leaders and the sellers to the rest of the world. And so that's really the intent of this bill, and I think authorizing all these different research programs will take us down that road. I also think it's good that we authorize hybrid energy systems R&D programs, applications for desalination, hydrogen production, heat for industrial processes, carbon capture, use and storage, all of things which I know the ranking member and my friends on the other side support. So my hope is that we will refine this product even further after today, but I do ask my colleagues to support this bill to get us one step closer to what we all want, which is American domination of the nuclear energy field and the provision of more clean energy in the years to come. Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Does anyone else wish to be recognized? Okay. We will now proceed with amendments in order of the roster. The first amendment on the roster is an amendment offered by the ranking member, Mr. Weber. Mr. Weber, you are recognized to offer an amendment.
Madam Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment number 1, amendment in the nature of a substitute.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading. Without objection, so ordered. I recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Chairwoman Fletcher. I'll start by restating an important part of my opening statement. I support Representative Lamb's intent with this legislation, and I am committed to continuing our discussions on this bill to reach a place of bipartisan agreement. I'm not sure having Dan Newhouse is not on the committee makes it exactly bipartisan, but I'll leave that alone for the time being. I appreciate and respect the Science Committee's tradition of working collaboratively on transformative energy technology, R&D, like advanced nuclear, and the gentleman makes a good point about how important it is. Over the years, most recently with the enactment of NECA, I've seen great things that we can accomplish when we work together. I think we can all agree that DOE's world-leading research and development enterprise is one of our nation's greatest assets. So these activities deserve our full attention and strong support when we agree on those. But with a national debt of $23 trillion and rising, probably going to be worse in the current crisis, we must continue to do our due diligence. It's my belief that nuclear legislation we will consider today takes a step just a little too far. As written, this bill would reach close to $2 billion with the B dollars in authorized funds by fiscal year 2025. Just for context, DOE's Office of Nuclear Energy last year alone received $1.3 billion. In Congress, we have to consider the whole picture, and we have to make hard decisions. And for an issue as critical as advanced nuclear, we cannot afford to take a broad-brushed approach. We need to take our time and think about what truly requires the focus on our taxpayers' precious federal dollars. That's why this morning I'm offering an amendment in the nature of a substitute. And this amendment actually offers an optimized solution. It identifies the most vital nuclear energy priorities, ones that have the greatest potential for supporting the future of the American nuclear industry, and will provide the largest return on our investment in the clean energy future. Don't miss that, clean energy future. The fact is, despite advances in modeling and despite calls for various demonstration projects, advanced nuclear fuels and technologies rely on validation through direct experimentation in the lab. That's why the central piece of my amendment is full funding for the construction of the versatile neutron source, a user facility that is capable of producing the fast neutrons needed to test many advanced reactor designs. In addition to authorizing research in advanced nuclear reactors and fuels, directing the Secretary to carry out a nuclear energy strategic plan and streamlining nuclear high-performance computing activities, my amendment also includes a vital authorization of DOE's successful public-private partnerships. That's perfect. In the past few years, we have seen private companies benefit from leveraging these facilities and the resources that the DOE has to offer. As a result of this kind of partnership, it's very likely that several of these companies may soon be able to license a commercial reactor. This would be a tremendous accomplishment for everybody involved. By authorizing this program, we can continue to drive success for the U.S. nuclear energy industry the gentleman was talking about. I want to be clear. I support substantial federal investment in advanced nuclear technologies. In order to maintain our leadership in nuclear power, the United States must continue developing cutting-edge technology right here at home. We cannot afford to miss the economic opportunity provided by next-generation nuclear technology, and we mustn't let our best engineers and scientists go overseas. As always, I'm grateful for the opportunity to work along my science committee colleagues to prioritize fundamental research that will support nuclear innovation and keep America safe, independent, and globally competitive. I recognize that my amendment is a starting point in our discussion. With your commitment to a good faith negotiation and consideration of our concerns, I am prepared to withdraw my amendment. I hope my message is clear and impactful to my colleagues, and with that, Madam Chair, I will withdraw my amendment if you will either A, agree to work with me or give me the 6 winning numbers of the lotto.
Well,
I would.
I would love to know the 6 winning numbers of the lotto, but Mr. Weber, you certainly have my agreement, and I believe the agreement from Mr. Lamb is quite clear to continue working on this in good faith as we do on this committee regularly. So I
Thank you,
appreciate
Madam Chair, and with that, I withdraw my amendment.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Are there any other amendments? If not, a reporting quorum being present, I move that the Energy Subcommittee of the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology report H.R. 6097 to the full committee with the recommendation that the bill be approved. Those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. The ayes have it, and the bill is favorably reported. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I ask unanimous consent that staff be authorized to make any necessary technical and conforming changes to the bill. Without objection, so ordered. Members will have two subsequent calendar days in which to submit supplemental, minority, or additional views on the measure. We will now consider H.R. 4481, the Securing Energy Critical Elements and American Jobs Act of 2019. The clerk will report the bill.
H.R. 4481, a bill to authorize an energy.
Without objection, the bill is considered as read and open to amendment at any point. I recognize myself to present remarks on the bill. The Securing Energy Critical Elements and American Jobs Act, introduced by my colleague, Mr. Swalwell, authorizes DOE to conduct cross-cutting research, development, demonstration, and commercial application activities on critical energy elements to improve their recycling and their ability to be replaced with more commonly available materials, as well as establish more sustainable sources of these materials. The research program will also improve our understanding of critical energy elements' complex supply chains and establish a critical materials information center to catalog and disseminate information to scientists and engineers at labs, universities, and companies that are examining these materials across the country. In carrying out these activities, the bill ensures that DOE builds upon its current work in the area, particularly the groundbreaking R&D stewarded by the Critical Materials Institute at DOE's Ames Laboratory in Iowa. Lastly, H.R. 4481 requires the National Science and Technology Council to take a leading role in coordinating critical materials work at DOE and other relevant federal agencies. Critical materials are found in many of the modern technologies we rely on today. They are necessary to energy technologies like batteries, wind, and solar that are an important part of our cleaner energy future, as well as various technologies that are essential for our national defense. While the supply chain and technology application for each material is different, it is not wise for us to depend on countries with adversarial, unstable, or unjust governments to provide them. As we heard from experts in an energy subcommittee hearing last December, the RD&D authorized in this bill will reduce our dependence on these critical energy elements and bolster U.S.-based supply chains. By promoting secure, sustainable supplies of critical materials, this bill will help protect our economy, national security, and clean energy future. Considering its importance, it's no surprise that the Materials Research Society, the American Chemical Society, the American Physical Society, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, just to name a few, have endorsed the bill. I encourage all of my colleagues to support this bill as well. Does anyone else wish to be recognized? Are there any amendments to the bill? If not, a reporting quorum being present, I move that the Energy Subcommittee of the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology report H.R. 4481 to the full committee with the recommendation that the bill be approved. Those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is favorably reported. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I ask unanimous consent that staff be authorized to make any necessary technical and conforming changes to the bill. Without objection, so ordered. Members will have 2 subsequent calendar days in which to submit supplemental, minority, or additional views on the measure. We will now consider our last bill this morning, H.R. 4733, the Low Dose Radiation Research Act of 2019. The clerk will report the bill.
H.R. 4733, a bill to amend the...
Without objection, the bill is considered as read and open to amendment at any point. Does anyone else wish to be recognized to speak on the bill? We will now proceed with the amendments. We have an amendment offered by the ranking member, Mr. Weber. Mr. Weber, you are recognized to offer an amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment number 1, amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading. Without objection, so ordered. I recognize the gentleman for 5 minutes to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Chairwoman Fletcher. H.R. 4733, the Low Dose Radiation Research Act, authorizes a research program on the health effects of low-dose radiation within DOE's Office of Science. Currently, key functions of the U.S. nuclear and medical industries are guided by assumption-based radiation dose limits and protections. In order to best serve our nation's energy, medical, and defense and space exploration needs, we need to support the basic research in the radiology and biology that will help us directly define the impact of low doses of radiation. The U.S. should not rely on a, quote, best approximation, end quote, when it comes to our nuclear regulatory policies. Last Congress, we passed H.R. 589, the Department of Energy Research and Innovation Act, into law, and this legislation directs the Department of Energy's Office of Science to carry out a low-dose radiation research program. H.R. 4733 would expand on this legacy, authorizing specific funds and providing critical program direction to the department. This bill represents an opportunity to ensure that we as a nation are doing everything we can to make certain that the regulations, guidelines, and protections that we put in place are grounded in sound science. This amendment provides clarifying and technical updates to the underlying laws that are referenced in this legislation to reflect the enactment of H.R. 589. I want to again thank Representative Posey for his introducing this important bipartisan legislation. I encourage my colleagues to support this amendment and the underlying bill. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Are there any other amendments for H.R. 4733? If not, the vote occurs on the amendment in the nature of a substitute. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. A reporting quorum being present, I move that the Energy Subcommittee of the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology report H.R. 4733 as amended to the full committee with the recommendation that the bill be approved. Those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is favorably reported. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I ask unanimous consent that staff be authorized to make any necessary technical and conforming changes to the bill. Without objection, so ordered. Members will have 2 subsequent calendar days in which to submit supplemental, minority, or additional views on the measure. I want to thank the members for their attendance here this morning. This concludes our subcommittee markup, and we are adjourned.